Hey, vinyl community and other interested parties. This is Tim with the University of Vinyl. Back today. I want to take a look at the subgenre of synth pop called Sophista-Pop. Sophista-Pop was a more complicated structure of songs, chords, taking full advantage of the emerging technology of the late 1970s moving into the 1980s, all the different synthesizer options that were available at the time, and then also incorporating great, fantastic elements of bebop jazz, Stax horns, Philly blue-eyed soul, a little dash of Motown, and we ended up with a more complicated music, still very, very poppy, but now moving away from bubblegum pop. Now, I did a video several months ago talking about 4 or 5 albums from the synth pop genre, and I thought, well, let's break it down a little bit further and talk about Sophista-Pop today. So today I've got 5 albums, all about Sophista-Pop. I think these are fine examples of that subgenre. If you agree, let me know in the comments. If you don't agree, give me some other examples that you would classify as classic Sophista-Pop. So today, I'm back and we're talking about Sophista-Pop. When we talk about Sophista-Pop, we need to look at kind of the guiding lights or the influences that these Sophista-Pop artists looked at when coming up and defining the Sophista-Pop subgenre. One thing that we can point to is, of course, Bryan Ferry and Roxy Music, late 1970s manifesto moving into Avalon, that period. Also taking a look at David Bowie in the Berlin years and using different instrumentation and kind of working with, of course, Brian Eno. Those are kind of some highlights that the Sophista-Pop artist drew from. So it would make sense that I would need to include one Bryan Ferry solo album in this mix. And I decided to go with Noir. This is a 1987 album, and he had switched up his sound quite a bit from 1985's Boys and Girls. This is more of a groove-orientated, atmospheric dance album. He used a producer that had been working with Madonna previously on this album. Famously kind of teamed up with Johnny Marr for one of the better songs on the album. That, of course, was The Right Stuff. But the absolute high water mark for this thing is Kiss and Tell, the second song on the album on side 1. It's just a monster track. It builds very, very interestingly enough. It starts with the clacking of a typewriter, which then kind of segues into that in the pocket groove between bass and drums. And some fantastic lyrics. You know, there's been stuff written about that song saying it was Bryan Ferry getting back at ex-girlfriend Jerry Hall, who had written kind of a scandalous tell-all book, which included several things about their relationship. But that was Kiss and Tell. And this is a great sounding record, as all of the late period Roxy Music and Ferry solo albums were. I have a pressing that has master disc in the dead wax, and according to the liner notes, it was mastered by Bob Ludwig. Listening to this, you can definitely tell this thing jumps out of the speakers, and again, very atmospheric. It's not I think is hard hitting as far as it doesn't hit me as good as Boys and Girls, but the Kiss and Tell track really, really is just an incredible song. Also from 1987, at this point in time, on the fourth ABC album, it was mainly Martin Fry and Mark Smith, the two main guys in ABC, who were crafting these amazing pop songs. And this album really kind of moved into Sophista-Pop territory, coming back from 1985's How to Be a Zillionaire, which was very, very, very poppy. This has got, When Smokey Sings on it, King Without a Crown, The Night You Murdered Love. All three of these songs incorporate fantastic horns. There is, of course, heavy synth action happening, but also good guitar runs, courtesy of Mark Smith. And, when Smokey Sings, the chugging horns on that track, of course, it's a throwback to looking back fondly at Motown. And this album really, really hits well. I love this thing. The sound is amazing. It was mastered at the Townhouse in London. That is the fourth album from basically the duo ABC, 1987. A firm Sophista-Pop classic. In 1985, we got a really good album from Level 42. And that was, of course, World Machine. Of course, the hit on this thing was Something About You. Mark King is an incredible bass player, incorporating kind of slap and very, very funkified bass. The other person of note in this band, of course, was Michael Lindup, and he had the falsetto voice that would often kind of be the foil to Mark King's lower octave voice, which really kind of shined on Something About You, of course. Now, the other standout track, in my opinion, on this album is Leaving Me Now, which is a straight-ahead, beautiful pop ballad with a great synth keyboard outro. Have a listen to that. I think that thing clocks in, an even 5 minutes. This was on the Polydor label, and apparently this used to be owned by someone named Ann Hannah, who is written on the cover, probably because it was in a college dorm room, who knows. But that is Level 42, of course, the outfit led by Mark King, World Machine. In 1984, Paul Weller was ready to release upon the world his new outfit, which was called Style Council. This included Mick Talbot on keys and Steve Smith on drums. Weller really did a 180, after the jam with this band. This band was kind of a prototypical Sophista-Pop band. There were elements on the debut album released in 1984. In the UK, of course, it was called Cafe Blue. In the US, they capitalized on the lead single, My Ever-Changing Moods, and called that the album. This thing is kind of look at cafe society in Europe and the UK. Weller would bring an absolute laundry list of influences, including hard bop, Philly blue-eyed soul, Memphis Stax horns were all over this album. Lots of Motown were in the mix. Lots of Motown was in the mix as well. And this is a gorgeous listen. It's recorded really, really well. In the U.S., this came out on the Geffen label. These guys would appear in July 1985 at Live Aid. And Weller was using an Epiphone open-bodied guitar, something that you would, his guitar line sounded like Grant Green on this album. And My Ever-Changing Moods, You're the Best Thing, these are the absolute highlights of the album. A real departure from the kind of guttural, punkish jam music, moving into Style Council. This was a 7-year experiment for Paul Weller. Eventually, Paul Weller and Mick Talbot butted heads. There was a lot of problems with their final album. I'm not even sure if it was actually released in the end. I don't know the entire history on the band, but this really made an incredible statement. It was a huge hit record for them out of the gate, and this is one of the stalwarts of the Sophista-Pop movement. Another outstanding song on side one, second song, The Whole Point of No Return, is basically Weller solo, accompanied only by his guitar. A great vocal, a great song, and that is My Ever-Changing Moods, also known as Cafe Blue. Great album. Finally, we can't not talk about one particular artist when we're talking about British Sophista-Pop. That, of course, is the band Chardet, with Chardet Boo there on the front cover. This is their debut album. It was released in 1984. Diamond Life. The song that does it for me on this album is Your Love Is King. Starts with a gorgeous, sax solo of the period. Any big hits from the 1980s, is there not a sax solo included? Usually there was. But this led off with a beautiful sax solo, moving into some very tasteful guitar licks, an in-the-pocket groove between a really nice funkified bass pattern, tasteful kind of cymbal riding drums. This is just incredible. Of course, Chardet's voice with that kind of smoke-inflected huskiness was something really unique at the time. Of course, the band would appear also at Live Aid in London in 1985. Smooth Operator was a huge hit. There's the actual hype sticker on this album. I actually ran across, this is a Dutch pressing from the Netherlands, of course. It sounds fantastic, really mastered well. Great separation of instruments on this thing. This is a cool breeze on a hot night. Throw this album on, as millions of people did in the mid-1980s. And, great album. There is a really nice, well-done gatefold with some great photography of the band. Supposedly this thing was recorded in only 6 weeks, and Chardet became a huge moneymaker on the Epic label in the U.S., and that is Diamond Life, and that is a good way to kind of top off the Sophista-Pop subgenre movement with Chardet. Now, people can make arguments that there are many other artists that I may have missed. Something of the time from 1987, of course, was Sting. Now, the 87, this is a fantastic recording of this album, Nothing Like the Sun. It was released across 2 different records, so you have really good definition of sound, also mastered by Bob Ludwig. This is a little bonus album that I'm throwing in there that this really falls into Sophista-Pop, really. Sting with his jazz influences really coming to the fore on this album. So many great songs. We'll Be Together, Straight to My Heart, Rock Steady. I saw this tour, and he had a great amount of musicians on stage with him. Look for the live album, Bring On the Night. It's a double live album, and it's actually kind of hard to find. Okay, that is Sophista-Pop for today. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate all the incoming comments. Please, let's have a little interaction on this one. Let me know who you think I missed, who should be included as far as maybe the top 10 Sophista-Pop albums. But really remember, this is a British subgenre of new wave and synth pop. Take care. We'll see you soon.